All right, this is the instructional video for the project relating to the consolidated worksheets. And as I've mentioned before, the consolidated worksheet is a project that primarily focuses on creating a makeshift template, we'll call it, making multiple copies of that worksheet, and then using a consolidated worksheet to compile totals. So for example, if you were a franchisee, you had 5 different locations of your franchise, you created tracked expenses in a similar fashion for all 5 locations, and at the end of every month you wanted to compile a list of your overall expenses, each site individually, and as an enterprise. You would use a consolidated worksheet to create the template that you would use to track expenses for each location. And since that each location has its own sheet, but those sheets are identical to one another, you can kind of overlay a consolidated sheet on top of it, and then to kind of drill through a specific cell to pull information. It sounds a little tricky at first, but as we start to get into this project and start to really work with it, I'm sure it'll make it be a little more clear. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with a blank document, and we are going to do a file save as. And for this project, we are going to save our work as consolidated expenses. Consolidated expenses. All right, I will zoom in a little bit on this screen so you can see what I'm doing here. In cell A1, we're going to enter the information for our title of our worksheet. And this we're going to call Anderson Corporation. And then in cell L2, we're going to enter the subtitle for this sheet. And this is going to be our 2026 projected expenses. And then we're going to select another enter. Now, in cell A3, we're going to use row 3 for our column headings, so our field names, and then in the rows immediately below that, we're going to be using the information as our expense categories. So in cell A3, we're going to type the text expense category, and then tab. And as we navigate across, cell B3 will be 2024. And we're going to Alt-Enter to do a forced line break. And then actual. So 2024 actual. See, these are our actual expenses for 2024. In cell C3, 2025 projected. Alt-Enter. %sign change, and then tab over. And then in cell D3, 2025, cell E3, 2026, projected, Alt-Enter, %change. All right, and that should be projected. I'll change it later. And then we'll have 2026. And then finally, average, Alt-Enter, %change. All right, so we've got our row headings, or our column headings, or our field names. And then in column A, as we navigate down, we're going to enter our expense categories. And so we're going to have our payroll, benefits, utilities, rent, transportation, trade shows, maintenance, advertising, administrative, and then total at the very end. All right, so we've got our column headings or our field headings. We're gonna use columns A through G. So one of the things that we're gonna do right away is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a merge and center for the range A1 through G1. That's where we have our Anderson Corporation heading. We're gonna do a merge and center, so our home tab alignment group, merge. We're also gonna apply the title, cell style, and apply the bold formatting. We're going to do the same thing with row 2, A2 through G2. We're going to merge and center, apply the title, style, and this time we are going to decrease the font size 2 times, changing it from 18 to 14. This one will not be bold application. In row 3, with the column headings A3 through G3, we're going to apply the cell style heading 3. And then we're going to do some column alignments. So we're going to select column A. We're going to change column A width to 18. So you can either click and hold, drag that out to 18, or you can also go to your home tab, format, column width, and change it to 18 that way. And again, that was column A, not column B. Columns B, D, so B, D, and F. Again, I'm using my control non-adjacent selection, so B, hold control, click D heading, F heading. Those columns will be 12 wide. And then columns C, hold control, E, and G will all be 14 wide. So our format in our cells group, column width, and 14. All right, and so if you don't have your autosave turned on, make sure you're periodically saving. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some dummy data in this worksheet so we can make sure that once we start adding our actual information, these formulas are really going to work. So in cell B4, where we have our payroll, we're just going to type 1. We're going to enter and then type 2. You can enter, you can hit the little green check mark. We're going to select cells B4 and 5, the range. We're going to pull down through B12. We're going to get the numbers 1 through 9, so we're just filling this information. Again, this is dummy information. If you do not have it correct, but as long as you have a whole number, you're totally fine. Don't worry about it. For columns C and E, we're going to use what's called a series fill. So we're going to start with column C or cell C4 for our projected change for 2025. And we're going to use 1.125 and then %. I'm going to click the green check mark because we're going to remain in this cell. Now, when I do 1.125%, you can see in my formula bar, it's registering 1.125. In my cell, the value is 1.13. Again, that's just because it's rounded to 2 decimal places. I'm going to come up to my home tab number group, increase my decimal by 1, and that change will be affected. And then I'm going to select C4 through C12. So we're going to select the range that we want to apply our fill to. So in this range, with that selected, I'm going to come up to my Home tab, my Editing group. We're going to select our Fill option, and then Series. Since we've identified a column range, it's going to recognize that we're working in a column. We do want to make this a linear. We want it to go in sequence. Our step value is going to be 1.125%. So where we have our step value, this is going to default to whole numbers. So 1 1/8% will be represented as 0.0125. So 0.0125. Okay. And that's going to increase by 1 1/4%. So 1.25% per step. In column D, we're going to add our 2024 actual to our projected change. And so in this case, we're going to use a couple formulas or a couple operations. Again, we're going to first start by doing equals and then select B4, which is our 2024 total. And then to 2024 total, we're going to add, so plus, and then we're going to add 1 1/8% of the total. So B4 times C4. And then enter. And again, that's going to take it's going to take the whole number in column B, and it's going to add this percent of that whole number to it. Again, if we just did B4 times C4, we would just get that 0.01125 number. So we want to make sure we use our whole actual number, and then we add that increase of 1 1/8%. We're going to fill that formula down. And then our projected percent change for 2026, and again, I'm just going to correct that error I made a little bit earlier. We're going to come to E4. This time we're going to start with 2.25%. And enter. Again, this time I'm going to increase the decimal by 1. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select that range, E4 through E12. Our Home tab Editing group, we're going to choose that Fill Series. And this time, we're going to use a step value of 0.0225. Oopsie. Oh, don't have a 0.0225. I had a division sign in there. All right, and this time, where our column C, we increased by 1 1/2%. Here we're increasing by 2 1/4%. So like we did for column D, column F is going to be equals our 2025 number, which is D4, plus D4 times E4, which is just increasing our 2025 total by 2 1/4%, and then adding it back to our 2025 total. Again, we're going to accept that information. We're going to fill it down. And then in our average change field over in this last one, column G4, we're just going to add the percentages together in columns C and E and divide that product by 2. So equals, open parentheses, because we're going to add our problem before we divide, C4 plus E4, close our parentheses, and then divide that by 2. And then our average, again, this is going to be a percentage. So when we change it to a percent, it's going to look a little bit different. We're going to apply that percent, and then we're going to increase by 3 decimal places, and then fill it down. All right, make sure we're saving our information as we go. Now, we're going to use this sheet to copy multiple times, so we're making sure that our information works. We're going to select A1 and A2. This is our corporate worksheet, so we're going to change this to an orange color. I'm going to change the fill or the font color to white. And then we're going to create some calculations here at the bottom. So in B13, this one we're going to total that value directly above. And then we're going to do the same thing in column D. This time it wants to include the year. If we include the year, we're going to get a wonky number, so we're just going to select D4 through D12 to exclude that 2025. This time we're going to select F4 through F12. Click that auto sum, and it's going to fill it for us that way, so it won't include that 2026 total. We're also going to apply the total style to row 13, our total row. So select A through G13. In our cell styles, we're going to select total. And then one more thing we're going to do is anytime we have a negative percentage sign, which there will be a few negatives, we want it to display as a color. The default for a negative number in percentages is just to be a negative sign in front of it. In this case, we're going to use the parentheses around the negative numbers, and we're going to change the color. So we're going to select C4 through C12, hold our control key because this is a non-adjacent range, select E4 through E12 and G4 through G12. So anything that has a percent sign on it. From there, we're going to go to our Home tab, Number Group. We're going to select the launcher, and then we're going to choose a custom formatting down at the bottom. So we're going to select Custom, and then, like I said, the default, it's going to show us what we are using right now, that 0.00% or 0.00% out 3 places. And so that 0.000% sign, that is how we format our positive numbers. We're going to add a semicolon at the end of that. Again, the semicolon is just a period with a comma below it. And then we're going to tell it how we want to format our negative numbers. Again, that semicolon indicates negative formatting. We're going to use the open bracket, which is the key adjacent to the letter P. Again, don't hold the shift because this is a straight bracket, not a curly bracket. We're going to type the color magenta. So M-A-G-E-N-T-A. Close that bracket. So in this case, we're telling the program that we want to apply a magenta color to negative numbers. And then we want to format those numbers in parentheses. So we're going to do an open parentheses, 0.000% sign, close the parentheses. Again, so our positive numbers right here are going to be displayed as 0.000% with the percent sign. That semicolon indicates how our negative numbers will be displayed, and we're telling it that we want to apply a magenta color, and we want to use our negative numbers in parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and say OK to apply that formatting. Now nothing happens, or it appears nothing happens, but to test that, I'm just going to come up to one of these in in either column C, E, or G. I'm going to do -1.25 and enter, and there you can see we've applied that magenta formatting with the parentheses around our negative numbers. So that's how our negative numbers will appear. All right, so we're going to make sure we've got this selected or changed. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to eliminate our 2024 actual numbers. Again, so now we've seen that with our dummy data, we've got all of that information displays correctly. So I'm going to eliminate my data here. So select B4 through B12. I'm going to come up to my Home tab, Editing Group, and I'm going to select this eraser. This is our clearing, a way to clear formatting and such. If we select Clear All, it's going to clear everything out of the cell. Again, any numbers or any information, any formatting, anything. If we clear the formatting, it will erase the formatting, but leave the numbers. If we say Clear Contents, it's going to delete what we have typed, and then it will keep all the formatting applied to it. All right, so with that in mind, again, I'm going to come back. I'm going to select the non-adjacent range, B4 through B12, which we have selected. Hold Control, D4 through D12, F4 through F12. And then we're going to apply the currency style to this. So our Home tab, Number Group, we're going to select Currency. And then I'm going to select B4 through B12. And then here I'm going to clear contents. Again, clearing the contents is only going to clear the numbers out. It's going to leave everything else intact. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our percentages that we're going to actually use for our legitimate data. So we're going to go ahead and add those percentages. All right, so we've added our percentages in here. And again, you can see the actual percentages that we're going to be using for this sheet. Again, in column C, we've entered our 2025 projections. And then in column E, we've entered our 2026 projections. All right, so now that we've got this initial worksheet created, we're going to create 4 copies of it, one for each of our locations that we're tracking. So in our Sheet tab area down at the bottom, we're going to create a couple copies. We're going to do a right click on our Sheet 1. We're going to say Move or Copy. We're going to select Create a Copy. And then we're going to select OK. And so that's created a copy of that sheet. So now we have our Sheet 1, number 2. We have a Sheet 1. So we can do that 3 more times. Or we can also, if we hold our Control key down, select the Sheet 1 tab, click and hold with our left mouse button, drag over, come on, we can make a copy of it that way as well. So again, we're going to take our active sheet, hold Control, left click and drag, left click and drag. So we've got 5 copies of that. So I'm going to come to the Sheet 1, the first position. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to call this one Consolidated Worksheet. All right, Sheet 2, again, here's our number 1. Sheet 2, I'm going to come to this second position where it says Anderson Corporation. I'm going to select cell A1, and instead of 2026 projected expenses, we're going to do Bayport Facility. I'm going to select that 1 and 2, that cells 1 and 2. I'm going to change the formatting a little bit for that one. I'm going to come down to the Sheet tab, double click, type Bayport, and then right click and it will apply the tab color that we just used for that heading. So we're going to do the same thing to the next ones. So we're going to come to the third sheet, the third position. We're going to change this one to Renewal Facility. All right, facility, not facility, facility. And then in the Sheets tab, we're going to call this one Renewal. And then we're going to apply a tab color. I'm going to choose the green. We're going to select our fourth sheet. This one is going to be Menominee. Come on. So this, again, we're going to call this one Menominee Facility. We're going to apply a different color to this one. And I'm going to use the fill color, this turquoise accent 4 color. Again, the sheet tab name, Menominee. And we're going to match the fill color there. And then that last one, we're going to call this one Garland Facility. And then name this sheet Garland. And right click, tab color, and I'm going to give this one this purple color. And the same thing with our heading information up at the top. All right, so we've got our Garland sheet tab, our Menominee sheet tab, our Renewal sheet tab, our Bayport sheet tab, and our consolidated worksheet. And again, a consolidated worksheet is where all of this information is going to come together. So I'm going to come to my Bayport sheet tab, and then here we're going to enter the information for our actual 2024 expenses. All right, so we've got our information entered, and so you can see that in our Bayport facility, we've got our payroll, benefits, all of that information entered. It's going to apply our percent changes. It's going to make those changes to our 2025 data. It's going to use our 2025 with our changes for 2026. It's going to make that application here. And then it's going to also give us our average percent change that we've applied. So we've got that, our Bayport data. We've got our renewal data. Whoopsie, renewal is supposed to be green. I must have accidentally changed that one. And I'm going to change that back to the green coloring. We've got our Menominee facility. And then we've got our Garland data as well. All right, so one of the things that I notice here is that with our total row, the formatting was displaced. So I'm going to click my consolidated worksheet, hold Shift, click Garland. So we've got all of them selected at the moment. I'm going to select cell B13. I'm going to hold Control, select D13 and F13. So I've selected that non-adjacent selection. I just want to come over and apply the currency style here, as we did to those currency style up here. So then I'm going to deselect that range that I've selected. And then now that I've done that, you can see it selected all of those sheet tabs together, and it made the change to the entire range. So again, we just selected one worksheet and then linked all of them together, made the change in one location, and then it applied it everywhere. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, and again, so our Bayport data, our renewal data, our Menominee data, our Garland data. And if you need to pause the screen while you're entering that information, that is totally fine. Yeah, you're running the show. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to use this consolidated worksheet. And we're going to, like I said before, we're going to drill through all of these 4 worksheets to pull the information through to this top sheet. So again, we're going to create a sum that's going to look at all of those other sheets. So in cell B4, we're going to do equals sum, open parentheses. All right, so when we've done equals sum, open parentheses, it recognizes that we're creating a formula. The next thing we do is very important. We're going to select our Bayport worksheet. You'll notice that it says equals sum Bayport exclamation mark. The exclamation mark indicates that we've selected a worksheet. Hold Shift, then select Garland. Now it's very important that you have the 4 tabs that you want to total in sequence. If you have Bayport, Menominee, Garland, Renewal, that's fine. If it's Garland, Renewal, Menominee, Bayport, fine. They just have to be in sequence. Consolidated either needs to be at the front or at the back. The other 4 need to be in sequence. So now we see we've got our equals sum Bayport through Garland sheet tabs. And then while we're in our formula, I'm going to click in cell B4. Again, because we were in, again, you can see right up there, we were in cell B4 when we created our formula. We did equals sum. We're going to select the range Bayport through Garland sheets. Cell B4. We're going to close that parentheses and enter. And then it's going to calculate that number through the entire range. So again, with our Bayport, we had 79,000. Renewal, we added 72,000, so we're about 150. Menominee, we're at about a little over 200. And then added another 70,000, so 270-ish. And here we see 277, so it looks like our calculation is running correctly. And then we filled that down and it populated our other columns with that information. All right, and again, so that is called 3D referencing. Again, I liken it to taking these 4 sheets, putting them on top of each other, taking our consolidated worksheet and putting on top of them, and then just taking a pencil or a drill and then just punching right through cell B4, cell B5, cell B6 to draw that information out. Again, one of the incredible fun and powerful features that's available in Microsoft Excel. All right, so once we've got that, again, save your progress if you're not on autosave. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a pie chart for our consolidated expenses for 2026. It's our projections. So I'm going to select A4 through A12, our expense categories. Hold Control, select F4 through F12. And then from there, we're going to go to Insert. We're going to create a pie chart. I'm quite partial to 3D pie charts, so we're going to do that. It populates our chart. Again, we've got our pie chart, our legend on the bottom. We're going to move this chart to its own sheet called 2026 Projected Expenses. Then I'm going to apply, again, I'm quite partial to the Style 8 title, or Style 8 chart. I'm going to apply that. It's going to give me a data labels of my category names. It's going to eliminate that legend. I'm also going to come up to my plus sign to add some chart elements. I'm going to select my data labels, more options, because I want to add options on my labels, and I'm going to choose the percentages. All right, so I've got all of them selected. I also want to increase the font size a little bit, so I'm going to change it to 12 instead of 10. And then we can see we've got a couple of them on top of one another. I'm just going to click one time to select my labels, one more time to select that specific label. And then I'm just going to click and hold, drag it over. It's going to automatically keep my, come on, that little guy over here. It's going to keep the same color, and it's going to give me a leader line. This is called a leader line right there. It's going to give me a leader line that's going to attach that label to that piece of pie. And then the last thing I'm going to do with this is I'm also going to extend my decimal 2 places, because 2, 2, 3, 3, those smaller percentages are really meaningless unless there's a little more context to them. So with my chart elements, data labels, I'm going to do more options. And then again, right down here, we have our number. I'm going to select the number. I'm going to make sure I'm using the percentage formatting with 2 decimal places. And that's that project. Again, I'm going to do my 2026 consolidated, or projected consolidated expenses. And then I'm going to take this, click and hold on that sheet tab, and then move it between our consolidated worksheet and our Bayport sheet. So in sequence, we've got our consolidated worksheet, our projected expenses pie chart, our Bayport sheet, our renewal sheet, our Menominee sheet, and our Garland sheet. I'm going to come back to my sheet number 1, our consolidated worksheet, and make sure I save the progress. That project is complete. This lesson is done.